Wi-Fi problem on my part, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. But yeah, so first of all, just a few practicalities. As you might or arguably should have noticed by now, to broadcast my interviews. I use this platform which is called Haps, and allows me to multicast on multiple other stream networks as well. So YouTube, Insta, in like Twitter, and even brand new Twitch. I have no idea how Twitch works. I subscribe just for this purpose, and so I don't know what's going to happen, but still, just so you know. So yeah, I encourage you to subscribe to my Haps channel so that you can receive regular updates on future episodes, and also support me through support my work through the coins that Haps is generous enough to provide you with. Yeah, my video sucks today. Anyway, now that we've taken care of the formalities, let's introduce today's guests. It's my great pleasure to have Chelsea Connor here tonight. So thank you, Chelsea, and welcome to the Snakeman's Lair.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, well, the honor is all mine, because I've been following your work for a while on social media, and so I would like to start with right away with what you do for a living, so to say, because I'm always hesitant to say that, because a lot of people actually can't afford a decent living with just working on herbs. So yeah, I'm always cautious when I use those words. But yeah, so you are a herpetologist. You will start this fall. You will start a PhD at Clemson University. So congrats for that. I can see you're excited. Is it going to be in Chris Parkinson's lab?
No, I'm going to be working with Mike Sayers. I don't know if you know him, but he does work with Chris sometimes. So I actually have talked to Chris a couple of times too. He did my interview. So I definitely got to virtually meet him. I'll get to meet him in person when I get there. I saw like some of the snakes that he had, and I'm just like really interested in meeting them in person too.
Oh yeah. I totally get it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you're no, as of now you're working on anoles or anoles. I never actually realized how to pronounce it. But.
So you can say anole or you can say anole. Either pronunciation.
Anole. Okay. Then
Yeah.
I was completely off the mark. Great.
I've realized that there's a lot of different ways that people pronounce it, especially since like usually you just see it typed. If people in Florida call them the green ones that they have, they call them chameleons, which I don't know how they came across that.
Not exactly the same thing, but
definitely not. But different regions, they call them different things. So some people might not have even heard like just anole in general. However you want to pronounce it, I think it's okay. Anole, I know, comes from the original word that the Kalinago people that live on my island and a lot of Caribbean other islands had for the lizard when they first discovered it. And the European name anole has just been like adapted from that.
Oh yeah, that's already a very interesting point that I think will come back later on. But first of all, let's set things clear for our audience. Some of whom might not be aware exactly of what anoles are. So exactly, well, they are lizards first of all, but that's pretty much, well, not all I know about them, but most of it. So I'll leave the floor to you to explain exactly what anoles are and why they are such a fascinating study subject.
Well, it's hard to put anoles like into a single category because different species are so widely varied from others. But very basically, anoles are tree lizards, typically tree lizards. They're usually Pretty small. They have long tails. They're usually the little green ones you see running up and down the tree. They eat insects, and they have a dewlap. So two of the things that people tell me they notice about lizards a lot, especially anoles, is they have this little fleshy thing that comes out from their neck, and they do push-ups. So those are like two really distinctive behaviors of anoles that people notice. The dewlaps, and every species has a unique dewlap. Even within like male and female, if the female happens to have a dewlap, they don't always do, the males always do, then they are sometimes like different patterns or different colors. And there are actually two species of anoles that don't have dewlaps at all.
So what is the function of that dewlap?
So the dewlaps are used to court females or to like ward off other males. So if there's a female that they're trying to attract, they will flash their dewlap and they'll do the push-ups. And similarly, if there's a male that they want to scare off from the territory, they'll do the same thing.
Oh, yeah,
like
so
a different like speed and frequency too. There's like a different language with how they use it for that.
Oh yeah, so well that's already something that I find really interesting, because again it makes for a great behavioral for a good example of like apparently simple but maybe not so simple communication behavior in an animal species, because again you describe it as a language. So maybe is it just like the trademark push-up thing, or do like particular movements of the dewlap or the head mean something different than others?
So from what I've noticed, and I haven't read a lot of papers on this, and I really should. There's so many things to study about anoles. I can't read all of the papers, but from what I've noticed, depending on what they're trying to do, there is a different like speed and frequency with how they like bob their heads and do the push-ups and flash their dewlaps. Like for the anoles back home, it seems to be more prolonged when they're trying to like scare off another male, especially if the other male is not standing down. And then when it's attracting a female, they seem to have a little bit like to me, they seem to have a bit more flourish. You know, they're trying to be a little bit more fancy to get her attention.
And so, what is your main study focus when it comes to anoles? Because yeah, like you said that there is so much. Yeah, so much has been written about them, and there's so much that we still don't know. What are you exactly? What are you mainly concerned with when it comes to them?
So I'm not sure what my PhD project is going to be yet. I do have a lot of questions about anoles, a lot of things that I'd love to research. If not for my PhD project, then like further like past that. But my undergrad work was looking at the dietary niche overlap of the two species that occur on my island. One of them is endemic, and the other one is an introduced species. It's invasive. It was originally from Puerto Rico and was introduced on a shipment in like the early 2000s. So there has been like a marked difference in the occurrence of the endemic in areas they were very common before. And with an introduced or invasive species, what usually happens is that the population of the native species does drop a bit. So looking at other ways that they might compete, want to know, are they eating the same things? Are they competing for the same prey items? And is that having a large or small negative impact on the population of the endemic species as well?
Oh yeah, that makes that is really interesting for sure, and indeed it makes me think about what is, well, not my experience, but what is the perspective that I mainly have on when it comes to when I think of anoles, which is through a more of an evolutionary lens, because I'm more familiar. I'm like just a bit familiar with like the work of Dr. Jonathan Losos on the anoles as a model of adaptive radiation and evolutionary divergence and such. So I do find that extremely fascinating, because I mean everyone knows like Darwin's finches and all that. But honestly, I'm a herb person, so I think lizards are much cooler. So yeah, that's probably why I really wanted to discuss this thing, this aspect with you. So the evolutionary relevance of studying anoles, and why are they such a like, I would say, such a like groundbreaking evolutionary model even.
So yeah, I've read Jonathan Lotus' book, Lizards and Evolutionary Tree. I actually reference it a lot when I'm doing like when I write certain things about anoles to make sure that like, wait, let me just see if it's in his book, and I'm like, I have my facts right. Anoles adapt really quickly to their environment, and I'm not sure why that is, to be perfectly honest. But the fact that they are able to adapt and evolve in such a short span of time, when we expect evolution to be this really long, drawn out process through lots and lots of generations, is a really good insight into how evolution works, because we get to look at, okay, what pushes these changes, and then what happens to facilitate them. Like with the endemic anole on my island, there's 4 different ecotypes, and ecotypes are different from ecomorphs. If you know anoles, you know an ecomorph is its body's adapted to living in a certain microhabitat. With ecotypes, these lizards look different on different parts of my island. They are all still the same species, but they may have like 1 or 2 differences in their patterning, maybe in like their limb length, but they are still just the one species. So there's 4 different ecotypes, and 2 of those ecotypes are one ecomorph, and then 2 of them are a different ecomorph. So you find that the ones that are a different ecomorph from the Puerto Rican crested anole. Puerto Rican crested anole is a trunk ground anole. So those that are trunk crown have no problem cohabitating with them. They are fine in those populations. They have the least amount of dietary overlap because they're in a different area finding insects compared to the invasive species. And those are the ones that are more likely to pass on those genes. And being able to see those changes and those separation and those niches in a species like that is usually very easily accessible and easily studied, and to be honest, not very hard to catch often, makes it a really fun and easy study subject for scientists who are interested in looking at evolution and how it works.
Oh no, I definitely don't doubt it. Like, to be honest, I'm digressing a bit, but I was just thinking that one of the few like very clear, vivid memories that I still have from the first time I visited the US. It was 2004. Like I was 8. It was basically catching green anoles. So yeah, that's that's probably definitely one of the ththings that I remember best from that trip. And indeed, it was quite easier than with like the European lizards, I have to say. So yeah, that I'm actually glad that it wasn't just me. So
yeah, no, I found that I can catch in my hand at this point if I just grab them fast enough. Like, yeah, you see them and then you can figure out which way they're gonna go and what they're gonna do, so you can just like eyeball it and just grab one. If you've never caught an anole before, I don't recommend that, because then you wouldn't know how much strength you need to hold it. You don't want to hurt the lizard. I've handled enough that I'm like, okay, if I close my hand this much, then the lizard will be fine.
So you were saying that these anoles have a wide variety of adaptations to their environment, like limb length or tail length or you name it. So how does that reflect in like species diversity? Because again, we have ecomorphs and ecotypes, but in terms of different species, like does it match this level of diversity, or like is it just like a few like very widespread species with different with different adaptations between populations, I mean?
So there's 430 recognized species of anoles right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of them. There's a few. um, there's false chameleon anoles who look a lot like chameleons. Those actually have some background to being called a chameleon, unlike the green anoles. They move slowly the way that chameleons do. I don't think their tails are detachable. Their tails, I think, are similar to actual chameleon tails, but they do have the independently mobile eyes as well. They don't, however, have the same tongue. They eat snails typically. They have adapted molars for crushing those shells, so they eat snails and they'll also eat beetles. There's aquatic anoles who are actually more semi-aquatic, despite that they're just called aquatic anoles. But when disturbed, they typically jump right into the water to escape from whatever it is that is bothering them. There is one that has this like bubble on its head that it uses as a rebreather, like a scuba tank, so that it can stay underwater
Oh
for
yeah,
longer.
I read an article about that. I was blown away. Like only now did I recall that it was an anole. But yeah, I mean honestly, now that I think on second thought, I'm not surprised because like out of 430 different species, it was bound to be an anole basically. So,
You're right.
but so no, yeah,
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 so
no, that
it and some of the other aquatic anoles also have like hydrophobic skin, which helps them walk on water. So sometimes they won't jump into the water, they will just run right across it, and their hydrophobic skin helps with that. Um, there's like grass bush anoles, which tend to have really long tails, which help them counterbalance when they are jumping on those like really skinny surfaces that they like. So if you find an anole in the grass, it's going to have that extremely long tail. It's going to help it balance its weight and stay on there. There's one anole that, well, I think there's actually a couple of them, but there's one that I'm remembering that has been reported to glide. If disturbed, it jumps and like uses its tail in the way that flying
I
geckos
was I
do,
was
flapping
literally
themselves.
about to I was literally about to say that the only thing missing is a flying and all, but then I held myself back because I thought I bet there is one of that. Even there
400
even
species, there
is
has
one
to
of
be one.
those, and indeed, and indeed there is.
There had to be one. There's like 400 species. There has to be at least one that decides to jump out of a tree when it's bothered.
Just like that, yeah, of course. Like
Yeah.
because why not? Like,
Why not? Um,
so we have a question already from from Alana who asks, do chameleon animals have prehensile tails, and do chameleons even have that in the first
yeah,
place?
so chameleons have prehensile tails. I actually have a pet chameleon. She's sitting in her tank looking at me right now. But if I could show her to you, she's like holding on to something, and she's on a lower branch and she's holding on to the top one with her tail. So the prehensile tail allows them to hold on to something. If something happens to that lower branch and she ends up letting go of it, her tail is still holding on to the top one. So she's still secure and she's not going to fall to the ground. Chameleon anoles, I've looked this up so many times. And what I found said that their tails don't detach like other anole lizards do. That's called caudal autotomy. But I haven't like seen like actual confirmation that their tails are prehensile. Just that it doesn't seem to detach in the way that other anoles do. I would love to like find more on that if anybody has like an actual paper that describes how their tails are. Because usually when describing these anoles in papers, you don't talk about like whether or not their tails are prehensile.
Oh,
I want to
and
know
if,
about that specifically.
yeah, and if there is no paper, perhaps even better. Like you can write it.
You're right. I could write it.
But yeah, so considering this extraordinary diversity in well, not only species numbers but also in adaptations, like you said. So like you were talking about your island, which is Dominica, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And so indeed, like anoles are widespread within within like the whole Caribbean region. So, how did isolation influence this unique evolutionary dynamic? So, did it favor the emergence of this many ecomorphs, ecotypes, and any possible adaptation you can think of?
So with a lot of species of animals, being isolated on an island definitely helps species to diverge, because each island comes with its own unique set of circumstances. You are, on your own in this population, unable to interact with another population, and one island may have rocky terrain, and one might be like my island is forest, which is why our anoles are green. And we have one ecotype that is just like really deep foresty green because it lives right in the middle of all these forests. Having those specific circumstances, like if you live in the middle of the forest, being green is definitely going to help you blend in and not get eaten. Whereas on an island that has, like, it's flatter, there's more rocks, being brown is going to help you blend in. Every island having it's like different terrain and different weather patterns, because not all of them get as much rain as others do. I know a lot of people think of islands and they go, "Oh yeah, it's just like it's sand and and beach, and they're all just rainy." That's not how every island is. Those pressures are what helps shape basically an individual species.
No, yeah, I mean, so yeah, this is basically peak island biogeography. Like, well, I'm not sure if I should say textbook, because anything is barely anything is ever textbook when it comes to evolution and nature in general. But still, like this definitely I do believe they definitely deserve the annals. I mean, deserve more, like, perhaps general attention than they get, because, well, for what you just said, but also like they definitely have nothing short on, like, the more famous, again, the Darwin's finches, or I don't know, other, like, yeah, this super representative clades. So yeah, at least they could be a good reptile flagship species, even, perhaps. And speaking of that, I was thinking about conservation. My next question was going to be about conservation, because considering also how small and how fragmented some animal populations are, because they live on several different islands. Like, in general, at least, what is their conservation status? So are there certain species that are highly threatened and could serve as like ambassadors to advocate protection of a particular habitat unique to an island?
Yeah, so there are several anole species that are either, we're not sure, but estimating that there's a low population because of how hard to access the area is, how hard they are to find, and the fact that we find a few of them, it's safe to assume that there isn't a lot. There are also a lot of anoles that live in places that are, in the middle of deforestation and urbanization because of human intervention. Because of that, that is affecting populations. Like the blue anole, which lives in Isla Gorgona. That's an island off the coast of Colombia. It's only found there. It's the world's only pure blue lizard. It is hard to find because it lives up in the tree canopy. And naturally, looking up in the tree canopy for a blue lizard, it's a little it's a little tricky to figure out
Yeah,
where this blue lizard is
sounds
going
about
to
right.
be. But they do come down the tree. And when they do, they get eaten by basilisk lizards. It's already hard to spot them. As soon as they come down the tree, they're usually preyed upon. Their population number is unknown, but the conservation status is endangered, because it is safe to say there's not a lot of them there. The island itself is not very big either. But the locals have taken on the anole as kind of like their mascot. There's a lot of places that have the blue anole as part of their logo, or they have it like painted on a building, and things like that are what help bring attention to animals that need help with conservation. There's a lot of work being done on anoles that are in the Caribbean or in Central and South America where they naturally occur. But again, it's access and money. Some of them live way deep into the forest, where you would need I don't want to say you'd have to cut the trees down, but the forest does tend to get denser the further you go in, and you would need better resources for that. And it's hard to get a good population estimate. For green anoles, we know that there's a lot of green anoles everywhere because we see them in the towns. They have adapted to urbanization with brown anoles, but there are some that have not adapted to that. They have moved further into the forest, and it's a bit difficult to conserve a species of animal as well that some people are just like, ugh, lizards. They definitely need better PR. And I think that's one of the things I'm trying to do. But
yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of ways.
sometimes. I mean, I know it's a matter of taste, but honestly, people like lizards that do push-ups have like flamboyant dewlaps, glide, breathe underwater, throw bubbles on their effing head, and then and all that. Like, I mean, you don't get much cooler than that. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, I know they don't have fur, they don't have feathers, but does it really matter that much?
For some people, they're not very charismatic. There's charismatic species, and they're usually mammals. They're usually like wolves that have cute cubs. And everyone's like, oh, look at the wolves. And I'm not saying that wolves don't need to be conserved either. I'm just saying there's a lot of other species out there that deserve attention. There's also a species of anole that has, I think there's actually two of them that have translucent eyelids, and one of them lives in a cave. So researchers think that that translucent eyelid acts as like sunglasses when it comes out of the cave during the day. So it isn't exposing its eye to harsh sunlight right away. Like these are really cool lizards.
Yeah,
You need
like,
to
I
keep
mean,
them around.
honestly, if someone started a presentation with a slide saying lizards evolved sunglasses, I'd be like, okay, I'm interested in your religion, sir, or Catholic. And still, it's true. Like it really is out there, which is absolutely crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and
I
then we
think
have.
one of the biggest things that face a lot of species is regarding conservation is making them attractive, like selling them to people. And you would think that you wouldn't need to sell an animal to someone to say that, hey, we need this animal on our planet, we need it to live. But some people aren't invested in something unless you show them why they should be invested, or you show them how amazing and great something can be. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because then you get to teach them all the cool things that you know about that animal as well.
And indeed, just at the right moment comes another question by Alana, who indeed is particularly eager to learn more about anoles, and of course I appreciate it a lot. So green anoles can change color, right? And how many species of anole can do that, and why do you think they develop that ability?
Yes, so green anoles can turn to like a darker brown. Some of them will do their whole body. Sometimes they'll do like eye spots. So depending on the type of interaction or they're having, type of mood they're in, if they're fighting with another male, usually they start off with the eye spots to let them know it's like, hey, I don't like you. I don't want you around here. They'll do the dewlaps. It's a way of communication. A lot of people think that chameleons and anoles and other lizards change color to like blend into a background, but it really is part of how they communicate to other lizards and communicate to predators and communicate to us, because they consider us predators as well sometimes. So when my chameleon is mad, she will turn dark green and she'll get these black spots on her. The yellow spots will like brighten up as well, and she'll puff her body up. So that's all part of the communication. When an anole is upset, if it's cold, it will change color. Temperature is also a reason why they change color as well, to try to attract more heat. If it's really cold, it'll darken up to try to get more heat attracted to their body. If you've ever seen two anoles fighting with the green anoles, when an anole loses, usually the winner is the one that like goes dark for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, but he does his little like, oh, I won. He does little push-ups and he's dark.
Wow, that
Um,
that sounds like Mortal Kombat. That gives so many
you
Mortal
should
Kombat vibes.
you should look up a video of green anoles fighting. It is amazing to see. I've watched them like throw each other off of branches all the time. Like they'll just grab each other by the head and just toss. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know where the other lizard went, but
they definitely don't hold back. Wow.
no. Anoles will also eat other anoles. If it's small enough, and it can fit in its mouth, it's gonna eat it. They eat geckos that are small enough as well. Any lizard that is small enough, anything that's small enough to fit into its mouth, just anything in general. There are also anoles that eat like nectar or fruit. The Cuban night anole is the largest anole in the world, and they sometimes eat small enough birds. So.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So basically, you even have a monitor anole or something like that.
Basically, yeah. Anoles do everything. I don't know why you'd need another lizard.
Exactly. Why are there like 4,500 more lizard species in the world? Like, well, who needs them?
For what?
But so yeah, now that we've gone through we've gone on a complete tour of the anole spectrum, so to phrase it, I would like to go back to where it all started for you, so Dominica. So it's this time it's more about your personal story. So did you grow up on the island and develop your passion for animals and for herbs there, or did it happen through other means?
Yeah, so without saying how old I am, for most of my life I've lived in Dominica. I've been in Dominica longer than I've been in America. I'm very good at faking an American accent, though.
I wouldn't be able to tell. So yeah, that's.
I definitely, growing up on an island, we're able to just go outside anytime usually, and I go outside and I play with my cousins or my brother, or my mom would go to the river, which is like a cultural thing. We like go sit at the river and just like hang out for the weekend sometimes, or go swimming. Sometimes there'd be like a pool and we could go swimming. And I would always just like, I'd be looking at the fish in the river. I'd be looking at the birds. I'd be looking at the animals. I'd see a snake, and I was like, "What snake is that?" There's so many different kinds of snakes, and we have lesser Antillean racers on my island. They're very fast, if you couldn't tell from the name racer. So every time I see it, I'm like, "Why is it so fast? Are all snakes this fast?" I have so many questions. We found a boa once in our yard. We have an endemic species of boa. And I remember, because I used to watch Discovery Channel with my dad all the time religiously, and I looked at it. I opened its mouth; it was dead. I opened its mouth, and it didn't have like the big fangs that I've always seen on snakes on TV. And I didn't know at the time why boas don't have those fangs. And I just had so many questions. I had all these questions about animals, and I love the birds. I especially loved birds. And my mom got me this book. She got me a bird guide for my island, and it had the names in Creole, which is a language we speak on my island, Lesser Antillean Creole, and it had the names in English. And up until that time, what I did was I would just like take a lot of notes about an animal, and I would Google it with that information, because I knew what we called it in Creole, but I never had an English common name to connect it to. And the internet does not reference any of my Creole names. So finally, for at least for the birds, I had a way to like look all of these animals up. But still, I found a whip scorpion once. I didn't know what a whip scorpion was. I had to Google it, like, weird spider with claws.
So yeah, people basically, you remember that like absurdly ridiculous looking arthropod that you see in one of the Harry Potter movies, and you probably thought that it was a mythical animal. No, that is actually real. It's a whole order of spider slash scorpion like things that do exist. So yeah, that's
And
what it is.
they're really cool. I was afraid to touch it at first because I didn't know what it was. And then I found it online. And I was like, oh, okay, these are harmless then. But it already left by that point. It already went away to find somewhere new, because we were moving stuff in our yard, and it was like in a dark place. So when we exposed it to the sunlight, it was like, I don't like any of this. By the time I figured out what it was, it had already left to find a new dark spot. Spending a lot of time at a national park. I worked at a national park for a while, and then my mom also worked in the national park. So when I didn't work there, I was with her at that national park, and I could see coral from the shore, because there's like this sudden drop off a few feet into the water, and I could see couple pieces of coral. I could see sea urchins. There were lots of signs around the national park about the different kinds of snakes, the endemic lizard that we have, the anole, and the ground lizard that we have, the skink, and just all I wanted to know was more. And at first I was like, oh, I want to work with animals. I don't know what capacity. I had no idea about how many different kinds of animal scientists were out there, but I just knew it was like, I want to work with animals. That's what I want to do. I definitely want to do this. I would love to be able to teach other people about animals the same way that everybody on Discovery Channel taught me about animals. But just working with them would be a pleasure. And I started school in South Dakota. It was terrible. Came back home. It was terrible because the professors were not great people. You need to have good mentors and good professors, and people that believe in you. And when I came to Texas, which is where I am now, I haven't moved yet. I met my new mentor, and he just believed in me. He was like, "Hey, I know your island. I study the anoles there." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he told me the name in Creole. I was like, "Oh, I know that lizard." Because the English name did not register with me. He told me the name in Creole. I was like, "There we go. I know that animal." And I hadn't given them that much thought. I'd always thought about the snakes more, because snakes are so cool. And
oh yeah.
we don't have any venomous snakes though on the island. So hearing about this anole and hearing about his work, I looked up anoles, and I looked up more anoles, and I found out about Dr. Jonathan Lossos, and I found out about his book. And I just learned more and more and more. And I did not have that confidence at first. But again, having somebody who like believes in you fiercely and also tells you about all the possibilities of things that you can be. So, like I said earlier, I had no idea how many different kinds of animal scientists exist. I didn't know that I could work with animals in any other capacity than maybe being a zookeeper, maybe running a zoo one day myself, and learning about different ways that I could like work with animals. I could study them. I could do a million different things. I could specifically study ecology. I could study their genetics. I had no idea that this range was available. I had no idea that it was accessible to someone like me, considering the fact that I didn't even know that they existed for a while. And just having that world of possibility open up to me, and having the anoles, and they were like my gateway into this world of animal science. I definitely have like a sentimental connection to them now. But also, I just think they're really amazing lizards, if you could not tell from everything I've said today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
that's how I got into studying anoles, and that's how I'm here. That's why I started Did You Anoles? Like, do you know these animals exist? And that's why I like advocate so hard for all the things I advocate,
yeah.
because if
That
I
name is
as a
amazing,
kid,
by the way.
thank you. If
Did
I as
you
a kid
know?
had
Yeah, it's
known
great.
that these possibilities existed, I would have gotten here sooner, maybe. But also, I feel like there would have been so much more that I could have learned along the way as well. And there's kids who don't even know that these opportunities exist. They don't know that these roles exist. They don't know that they can do this. And I'm really here for them. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you can be this. And if it takes me like being loud everywhere online all over the place about what you can do and what you can be, I'm gonna do it, because everybody deserves to live their dreams. And growing up on an island, learning about all the flora and fauna that you have, and thinking that, okay, well, I know that they exist, too bad I can't do anything with them, and not thinking that you can go past that, it's a shame. There's a lot of cultural knowledge that can be lost as well, not just the Creole names. There's a lot of plants and herbs on the island that we have traditional uses for. And even if we don't still traditionally use them for those things, just knowing the history of that is super important.
Yeah, just one second. I'm going to charge my laptop because it's about to die.
Ooh,
Okay, we're safe. Done.
okay.
Now, note to self: get Jonathan Losos's book. Fine. Okay, so now that I'm actually really glad that you mentioned the danger of the risk of losing not only knowledge, but not only like scientific knowledge, but also cultural knowledge. For the like the you talked about the Creole names for your anole species, and also the herbal ethnobotanical knowledge, and like perhaps not exactly stemming from this, but in definitely many ways related to this is another aspect of your work that I greatly admire. So you recently founded, like last year, if I'm not mistaken, you co-started a movement, an initiative called Black Birders Week. Because on top of your herb work, you said it yourself, you're also really fond of birds, and you're an avid birder. And then this initiative started last year, and of course there is definitely a poignant backstory to it, but I will, if you're, I will leave it to you to explain like what Black Birders Week consists of, and why you and your partners in starting it felt the need to kickstart an idea of this kind.
Yeah. So last year, around this time, well, actually, like more like end of May, we started Blackbirders Week, due to an incident that occurred in Central Park in New York. A white woman called the cops on a black birder. He was trying to tell her she can't have her dog off leash in a certain part of the park where there are signs that say that you can't do that. It is to protect species that are in that part of the park. And instead of listening, she called the police and said she's going to tell them that he is threatening her life, which definitely was not happening. You can see it on the video yourself.
Yeah.
But incidents like that are not uncommon for Black people in general, and especially Black naturalists who, we spend a lot of time in the field, in parks, in wide open spaces looking for animals. Sometimes we have to be on our own for that, and it's not unusual for us to come across someone who would want to cause harm to us for I don't want to say ridiculous reasons. um, so we talked about it in our group chat, and we decided to start this week to highlight not just Black birders, but Black naturalists and what it is like for us being outdoors, the types of questions that we get, the types of people that approach us, the questions that we get all the time, the situations we face, the questions we have to ask ourselves when we go outside, the things that we do, the limbs that we go through to make sure that we're safe. Usually, if like Black birders going outside, you make it very obvious that you're birding. You have binoculars, you have a camera, you wear something that's very obviously, hey, I'm outdoorsy. I'm not looking at your house. It's not what I'm doing. And you shouldn't have to do that because people of other racial groups, particularly white people, don't have to go through such lengths to make sure that people know that they're not a threat. It's very pervasive in America, but it's not just something that happens in America. It happens all around the world. It happens in Europe. It happens even in the Caribbean. When white people come to the Caribbean, they bring these racial prejudices with them as well. And it's very important to have this conversation about what it's like being Black in America and being Black in the Caribbean, being Black in Europe, and going outdoors and trying to do the same activities that white people can do without worrying that someone's going to stop them just because of the color of their skin.
Yeah, and indeed, this also, yeah, this came in the like you said, in the wake of the very, like, I'm not going to say unfortunate, because it wasn't just an unfortunate event. It was a deliberate act of like faking a narrative for this this person's benefit. And by this person I mean the woman who accused, who actually threatened to portray Christian Cooper as an assailant. And it's so, if in that, so with this perspective in mind, like, everyone loves to talk about how basically the academic, but also like the amateur outdoors or naturalist environment is open for everyone and all encompassing and all understanding and such. But so how prevalent is this thing? Because you said that it happens all over the world, and I definitely don't doubt it. So is it that are we so oblivious to it? Because why is it that we are so oblivious to it? Is it because we basically the rest of we are not willing to listen, or is it because there are so few people that actually have the means and the opportunity to make their voice heard, that even if they do, it doesn't get as far as it would if more people were there to support them?
So there's definitely a lot of things that contribute to that. One of those is definitely willful ignorance. Like, there are people who, in response to seeing our events being posted on Facebook, are like, no, I'm not listening to any of this. Anybody can bird with me. Anybody of any color can bird with me. But it's like this attitude, this thing, is what is helping. One of the things that's helping this divide continue, this racial discrimination continue. Another thing is that some people view racism like it's bullying. Like, it doesn't happen until someone like says something. You have to specifically say something, or be mean to a person of color, and then you're being racist. But there's so many more layers to racism. It can also be passive. It can be those stereotypes that you've been taught that, like, while you were growing up, but it's not necessarily that you believe that they are true, but because they're in your subconscious, they're something that pop up to you. You might not even always realize it. There's things that you're doing that you're not even sure about, that can affect somebody negatively. And when they tell you about that, it's really important to listen. And back to the willful ignorance, because when someone tells you, hey, that thing that you did is not okay, the thing that you said is not okay, you have two choices. You can either apologize and try to do better, genuinely try to do better, or you can choose not to listen. And someone telling you that something that you did is racist is not calling you a racist. It is possible that you do something that is wrong. Everybody has that ability. Everybody's capable of doing that. Even as a woman, it's possible that I can say something that is sexist. That doesn't mean that I'm sexist. I'm definitely not. It is in the, hey, you did something, you need to do better, you need to correct it, and moving forward from that. It's so important to listen to the stories, and that's why one of the reasons why we have this week, and why several other weeks have been started, because we're giving you the stories. We're telling you, here is a thing that you do that isn't okay. Here is something that happens that isn't okay. And you need to speak up when you see it happening, or you need to listen to us when we tell you that it's happening. And, try to do better. Try to never do that thing again at all. There's also places where it's really hard for people to hear these voices because, like, for example, back home in the Caribbean, the majority of the people on the island are Black, like me. And then they're Kalinago people. They are indigenous people on the island. And they're, to a lesser extent, there's white people. There's a slightly larger population of white people recently because of like medical school. So they come to the Caribbean to go to medical school. But because that racism is not something that happens very often, because of how large the population of Black people is, when people do speak about it, sometimes it's like, oh, you're overreacting. Um, there's gaslighting that happens when you go, okay, there's something about that felt really racially tinged that isn't okay, and making people doubt themselves about an interaction that they know was not okay and they felt like definitely hurt them is another way to undermine that and to push back the conversation that needs to happen. It's sometimes very difficult to have these conversations because it's not going to make anybody comfortable. Definitely does not make Black people comfortable to talk about racism, but it's especially not going to make white people feel comfortable. And a lot of the times I see people online say, well, a really good way, a really easy way to put this. There's no easy way to put that racism is happening. Racism is not an easy thing. It's not a soft thing. It's not light. It's a heavy subject. And people of color are definitely not comfortable talking about the ins and outs of racism. And there's no reason why white people should be comfortable talking about it either. There's no way you're going to be comfortable. I've seen people write articles where they're like, it would make white people more comfortable and willing to come to the table. No. No. You're going to have to come to the table and sit with that discomfort because as much as you are wanting to be anti-racist, anti-racism is not something that you say you're going to do. It's something that is active, something that you're constantly doing and constantly working on. And as much as you didn't do the things that your ancestors did, your ancestors still did those things that have put things in place today that you benefit from and you profit from. And we're going to need to discuss that. You're not your ancestors, that's true, but discussing what they did and discussing how you benefit from it and how all these systems put in place help give you a privilege is not going to be comfortable. You don't want to hear it, but you're going to need to sit at the table and sit with the discomfort and listen to it and learn from it.
No, well, yeah, of course. It's there. There's hardly anything I could possibly add to this. Perhaps most likely nothing at all. So, I would. I was wondering, going back to Blackbirders Week, because like the second edition, so to say, took place recently. I believe I saw it circulating around on social media. And so, what has been the response so far, both on the part of people of color who joined and partook in your activities, and also from the birding community in general, from perhaps the nature community in general?
In general, the response was extremely positive. Black people are always like really happy when these weeks happen because we love supporting each other. And it's always like this year we focused the week on Black joy. Last year we talked a whole lot about that trauma, all of the racial trauma that happens when we have similar incidents like that occur, to what happened to Christian. This year we're focused on what makes you happy about birding, what makes you happy about being outside, what is your joy, and focusing on that joy brought a lot of other people joy as well. That was incredible to see. Everybody like posting their pictures with talking about the birds that they love, talking about why they love those birds, why they love birding, why they love being a naturalist, what it means to them. And also, as Black people, whether you're from America or you're from the Caribbean, you have this history of connection with the outdoors for your family, for your ancestors. Uh, on, on my island, there were a series of uprisings by slaves as well as the Kalinago people. My grandmother has Kalinago ancestry. So we have people who have learned to live outside and have passed that knowledge on. And my parents have a farm. They have lots of herbs and fruits and vegetables growing in the garden. We used to have goats and chickens. And I had a turkey at one point. I miss him a little bit. But we have these different kinds of connections with the outdoors, and they make us feel safe. And in some instances where we don't feel safe, it's important to talk about how they can make us feel safe. But overall, it's this conversation of how can we make the outdoors a better and more inclusive and safer space for everyone, and how can we amplify how happy it makes everybody to be outdoors and to be in nature and to be taking part in that.
Well, sorry. Well, it's definitely I'm definitely glad to hear that that at least with this you yourself, your partners in Blackbirders Weekend, everyone who participates or participated and or even shared the event or shared pictures is I'm glad to see that all those people are contributing to at least taking the first step towards meaningful change in this matter. And I think that this is a perfect way to conclude our lives. So thank you so much again, Chelsea, for being here today. We all wish you all the best for your upcoming PhD and for the work that you are doing for your community in the US and in Dominica as well. So thank you again. It was a true pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be here. It was also a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love talking about anoles. So,
and I definitely loved listening to it. And I'm sure I can speak on behalf of our audience as well. And speaking of, thanks to everyone who tuned into this live. The interview will remain available. The talk will remain available here on Halves, but also on YouTube and on Twitch. So you can share it or rewatch it anytime you want. And so again, the Snakeman's Lair will be back next week's Thursday, when I will be hosting wildlife filmmakers Matej and Zuzana Dolinaj from the Czech Republic, who are going to give us an insider's perspective on how wildlife documentaries work and exactly what is behind everything that we see on Discovery Channel or National Geographic and such. So thank you again, everyone, for being here today. See you next week, and have a great weekend in the meantime. Bye.